علا أهدى السبل لدلالته. الصبح بدا من طلعته والليل الأمم لشريعته. أزكى النسب أعلى الحسب كل العرب في خدمته. كل العرب في خدمته. الصبح بدا من طلعته والليل دجى من وفرته. فقى الرسل فضلا وعلا أهدى السبل لدلالته. سعتي الشجر نطق الحجر شق القمر بإشارته. جبريل أتى ليلة أسرى والرب دعا لحضرته. والرب دعا لحضرته. الصبح بدا من طلعته والليل دجى من وفرته. فقى الرسل فضلا وعلا أهدى السبل لدلالته. نال شرفا والله عفا عما سلف من أمته. فمحمدنا هو سيدنا فالعز لنا لإجابته. فالعز لنا لإجابته. الصبح بدا من طلعته والليل دجى من وفرته. فقى الرسل فضلا وعلا أهدى السبل لدلالته. الصبح بدا من طلعته والليل دجى من وفرته. فقى الرسل فضلا وعلا أهدى السبل لدلالته. أهدى السبل لدلالته.
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني. Increases the nur in the qubur and receives them with mercy. We're sitting here every morning, every day with a new opportunity, and we have choices to make. You could have bunked, you could have been elsewhere, you could have been napping, you could have made up any excuse, but you came and you are prepared to sit here in the masjid for an hour, more, few hours, for no worldly purpose, for no aim of this dunya, but because you want to improve on your relationship with Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Holy Quran and Deen, and you want to develop yourself for His sake. May Allah grant us all sincerity and steadfastness and bless us with acceptance. Questions we touched on last week. Some of the features of life in Arabia before Islam and features of the state of humanity in the world. And we spoke about history and why it's important. And we spoke about where our facts are drawn from. And I mentioned the 2 English books that you can get. One is by Martin Links, simply titled Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the other is named The Sealed Nectar but they draw from other works. And we spoke about some of the first historians of Islam, and we spoke about some of the works that these scholars draw from. And last week we ended with the Arab nation before the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and what they held onto of the teachings of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, but sadly had distorted. And we mentioned about the tawaf around the Kaaba, we mentioned about the pilgrimage season, we mentioned about standing on Arafah, and then they chose to stand on Muzdalifah, the Quraysh, and we mentioned about the sacred months, and the idea of sacrificing for a deity, except that they sacrificed for the idols. The question now today is, were there some Arabs who stuck to their guns, or were there in that time before Islam some who were known to distance themselves from the idols, and were there those who tried to be as pure in their faith as possible, tried to hang on to the teachings of their grand forefather Abraham, Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam? So we know of 4 individuals. There may have been more, but we know of 4. And they are known as, that's not my phone, eh? They are known as Hunafa. It's Ghair Munsarif, no tanween. Singular, you know, is Hanif. And we have the female name given, Hanifa. Hanif is simply someone who tries to remain pure as far as belief is concerned. Someone who turns away from all false deities, searching for or addressing the Supreme Being. And we say this in Salah as Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam said it, وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ حَنِيفًا. Hanif, turning away from all false deities. So there were 4 who are believed to have been Hunafa before Islam, meaning they turned away from false deities. And it's significant because everyone, the majority, everyone was sucked into it. Okay? And just before we come to them, you might ask, because this is one of the other questions too, you might ask, if they were descendants of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Arabs, via Nabi Ismail alayhi salam, how is it then that idol worship entered the Arabian Peninsula? And what is known in our books and what has been passed on in oral tradition, and Nabi Muhammad was made mention of this as well, is that one man is known to have started it. The influence of one man. His name is Amr bin Luhay. He was a strong and very influential businessman, and he used to travel out of the Arabian Peninsula and go to other regions for business. And Sham, Greater Syria included what? Included Lebanon, it included Jordan, it included Palestine, all these areas. And he did business there, and he would sell of the Arabian goods there, and he would draw of their goods and sell in the Arabian Peninsula, and he became a very good businessman. So he then went into Greater Syria, and he saw other cultures and people, and he then found this idol, Hubal. The idol's name was Hubal. This is known as the first idol to be brought into the Arabian Peninsula. He brought it into the precincts of the Kaaba, and initially the Arabs there were what? They were skeptic, but he had such a manner about him, and he had such a tongue, and he had such the gift of the gab, they say, a knack to convince people. He said, no, it's just something physical and for us to see, and it's beautiful. And thereafter they became accustomed to it. And slowly he started bringing more. And slowly his aim was to make business. Slowly he started selling off the smaller idols for people to have in their homes. And then he started influencing people regarding rituals, purchasing things that could be sacrificed, purchasing things that could be used to adorn these idols. And slowly but surely, the young saw the adults doing what they had done, and they understood it differently, and they became so accustomed to it that they allowed it in the precincts of the Kaaba, around the Kaaba, on the Kaaba, inside the Kaaba. It is found in our books that this particular one was still around when Nabi Muhammad ﷺ conquered Makkah, and it was of those that he destroyed. Around Makkah, inside Makkah, around the Kaaba, inside the Kaaba, on the Kaaba. For the Arabic students, you see there's a wow here. It's one of the unique times when a letter is written but not uttered, not pronounced, not read. Like the D in my surname, silent D. Like the B at the end of the word bomb. Right? Not read. Why did the Arabs do this? It's because if you have these three letters here, Ayn, Mim, Ra. Ayn, Mim, Ra. If you have it without vowels, without buddies, without tashkil, it could either be Umar or Amr. So what they did to differentiate between Umar and Amr, they added a waw for Amr. So if you see Ayn, Mim, Ra with a waw after it, it should be pronounced as Amr, not Umar. Okay? So he brought it in. One man influenced all, changed things, and that's how it started. Up until a point in time when there were more than 300, some say 360 idols in, around, and on the Kaaba, the holy Kaaba. Amr bin Luhay. So we were speaking about individuals who stuck to their guns. Individuals who did not give in to the idols. Each one of them is known as a Hanif. Someone who turns away from false deities and tries best to keep to pure belief. One who is and the most significant to us, who is known to have been or thought to have been a Hanif, is who? The Nabi Muhammad ﷺ's grandfather. Now, they asked for proof for this. Proof. Where's your proof? To say that Abdul Muttalib was a Hanif, someone who turned away from the false day. He was in the chief of Quraysh, and the Quraysh allowed the idols there. He was a businessman, and he saw to keep people unified, and he understood who he came from and who his forefathers were, etc. But there was no new message, nothing for clarity, but he tried his best. So proof, number one, is that we come into it inshallah, but just briefly for now. Something is said, and I will say it again inshallah when we get there, if Allah allows us to get there. When the attack was attempted on the Kaaba by Abraha and the elephant. We know the story, we grew up with that, right? Now. So what we'll mention is that Abraha came to the outskirts of Makkah, and he first set up camp there, and he sent scouts into Makkah to see what the situation is before the attack. You with me, Hajjaz? Right. But what he didn't know was, or what he did, that when he set up camp on the grazing pastures of some camels that were owned by Abdul Muttalib. Camels. So Abdul Muttalib also sent out scouts, and they came to report that die man het nou gekom, and he took charge of your place, and he took your camels. So Abdul Muttalib went out to the border of Makkah, and he sent a message in, he wants to see Abraham. And this man allowed him, long story short, he allowed him to come in, and he thought he would come to negotiate or surrender or whatever. But Abdul Muttalib came and specifically came to speak to him about releasing his camels, the say, come here. So he asked, Abraha said, I've come, and you can see I've come with an army to take your house down, your sacred house down. But you come as the chief of your people to speak to me about your camels. So he said, I'm in charge of my camels. I have to look after them. And that house has a Lord that looks after it. Understand? So he gave him his camels, and then he went back and he spoke to his people and said, I went for that, but I also was able to purvey and survey the area and what they have come with. And we cannot defend ourselves. It's the field. Alright? So what we're going to do is we're going to pray tonight, and then we're going to go out to the mountains on the outskirts, and then observe what's to happen. So the night they went and they hung onto the clit, they hung onto the covering of the Kaaba, and they made dua. They prayed to Allah to protect. Because if Abraha had destroyed the Kaaba, they would have taken charge of the region, and all the males may have been killed, and the women and the children would have been enslaved. Which means that Nabi Muhammad ﷺ would have been born into slavery. So the Kaaba was a symbol, but it was what it would have resulted in. Then, so they left, and we'll come to that narrative inshallah. But what did he say? He said, no, that house has a Lord. He didn't say the idols will protect, or the idols are there that can block it. No. That Lord has a Rabb, a Lord that will protect it. And a bigger proof to say that he was trying his best to be Hanif, trying his best to stick to the pure teachings of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, is that he named his youngest son, what? Abdullah. Not anything but a slave of Allah. Significant that youngest son became the father of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Abdullah. So Abdul Muttalib is known as who? As having been one of the Hunafa. Okay? Then we also have the famous narrative of the first revelation when Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam he experiences the unseen for the first time. When Jibreel alayhi salam descends with the first revelation. So we'll come to that inshallah. But the question is this: whom did Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam run to for support and advice and consolement? Did he go to his uncle Abu Talib? No. Did he go to his friend Abu Bakr as-Siddiq? No. He went to his wife, Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha. Okay? A narrative we come into, and you've heard about it. But the point here is, the next day or not long after, for more clarity, she took Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to her cousin, Waraqah. And Waraqah bin Nawfal, he was literate, which was unique. He could read and write Hajjah. And he got access to scripture, to literature. So if some say he became a Christian, others say no. He was searching, he was reading about what was regarded as revelation. Because how long a period, or what was the length of time that had passed between Nabi Isa alayhi salam and Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Just over 600 years of no messenger, of no communication, divine communication, of no message. So he was reading. He learned to read and write, and then he got access to scriptures because of some of their trade with the Jews in Medina and other areas, and he was reading and trying to learn. Okay? He was regarded as a muwahid, a Hanif. Some say, he was testing the waters, seeing Judaism in the Old Testament, seeing Christianity in the New Testament. But when Nabi Muhammad ﷺ was brought in front of him and he narrated what he had experienced in the cave, we know what he said. We're coming there, but he said that is the same individual, and he used the unique word namus, which we're coming to. But he said that is the same individual that came to Musa alayhi salam, to Moses, and he gave him some advice. Ibn Ammi Khadija, so the cousin of Khadija radiallahu anha, and her paternal, from a paternal side, meaning her father's brother's sons. Those are two famous individuals, Abdul Muttalib and Waraqah. Now, not so famous, but significant. Zayd, and what's his father's name? Amr, yes. Zayd ibn Amr. This individual passed away 5 years before the message. 5 years before the first revelation. Nabi Muhammad was 35 years old when he passed away. And the Nabi Muhammad knew that he was a man amongst the masses who never bowed to the idols. And he was on a quest and used to query and engage others and speak to them. And on one journey, he went to Sham and he spoke with some rabbis there. And then they said, they asked him, from where are you? He told them, from that region, Arabia. So they said, you are in the wrong place. Our books speak of signs, and they tell us that the final messenger, his time is near, and he would come in a place that looks, that resembles, or that sounds like the place that you are from. So he went back. And he came into Makkah at the time when the Quraysh were busy fortifying the Kaaba, rebuilding the Kaaba. There had been like a flood, and they felt that the walls were what? Were weakened. We come into it, inshallah. There was no mortar, no cement that was used before. So they tried to fortify the building. And they came to a point where they had to, everything was done, but they had to put the black stone back into its place. Remember? And then Nabi Muhammad was the one who they chose by the advice of Abdullah ibn Jada'an. He said that the first person who enters tomorrow morning, let him decide as to whom should put the black stone back in its place. Think about it, Hajjah. Now he was there in the mix. And then he witnessed all of this. And yes, he helped with the rebuilding and all. But then he was still not satisfied because the idols were again there in the mix. Okay? So then he thought to go back to those rabbis in Sham. You with me, Hajjah? So he leaves. And then he's attacked in the desert. Now later, those who attacked him narrated something that he said, because the issue was so bad, because he wanted to defend himself, and one thing led to the other, one thing led to another, and he realized that he was not going to make it, he was going to die. So he's on his last hajjah, and he calls out loud, he calls out something, and those who had attacked him heard this call, and they found it strange, and then they narrated it to people back in the city. And that's how it stuck. What did he call out? He said, "Oh Allah." Because they used the term Allah. They used the name Allah before. Allah, Imam Shafi'i is of the opinion that the name Allah is drawn from Ilah. What does Ilahun mean? A God. So if you put Al before it, it means the God. Al-Ilah. Then what happened was, they dropped the Hamza, which means the lam of Al, meaning the, and the lam of Ilah are joined. See, Hajjah? Meaning the God. Those who never saw. Okay? And then, in expression, what was added to it? Some fullness. Ilahun, right? Ilah means a God. But if you add Al, it means the God. And then if you remove the Hamza, so this first lam of Al is joined with the lam of Ilah, and you get. No one knows its origin. It's unique. You know it cannot be made dual. It cannot be made feminine. It cannot be made plural, like other nouns. Some say it's just unique, but others have tried to look at the possible origin. And Imam Shafi'i said because it was used before, there could have been a link to words that they knew before. So anyway, this man, when he realized he was going to die, can you imagine the scene? And his quest was so pure, and his quest was so sincere that he called out at that point. Even at that point, his quest was at the fore in his mind. He called out and said, "Oh Allah, if you have decreed that I am not to meet your messenger, please do not deprive my son from meeting him." He passed away. Who is his son? His son's name is Sa'id. Now all I need to tell you now is there's two things regarding him. Sa'id bin Zayd is one of the 10 known as those who were given glad tidings of Jannah. Al-Ashara al-Mubasharuna bil-Jannah. We know the 4 famous ones, the Khalifas. Abu Bakr is there, radiallahu anhu, Umar is there, radiallahu anhu, Uthman is there, radiallahu anhu, and Ali is there, radiallahu anhu. But the other 6, he's one of the other 6. More than that, Sa'id bin Zayd was married to who? He was married to Fatima. What Fatima? Umar's sister. We come into that narration where Umar set out to attack Rasulullah SAW one morning. Remember? So on the way he was met with someone, and this person saw something is verkeerd in Umar's gezicht. He's got something bad in his mind. So he engaged him, and then he told Umar, first sort out your own house before you go there. So what do you mean? He said, no, your sister and your skoonbroer. They had left the way of their forefathers. So he went there, and the whole incident by the house was when Umar attacked him. And then when he slapped his sister, he became shy and stopped. So Sa'id bin Zayd is the what? Is the son of this man who was a Hanif. Good? Now, so why mention them now? Why before even the prophetic history? Is to show you that there were some individuals, these strong individuals, and to give us some inspiration. And no matter if the masses are doing wrong, in the end, it's about my relationship with myself firstly. I have to be honest and true and pure, and then do my best to seek. And the quest continues. Don't just go with the flow. Allah says what? قُلْ لَا يَسْتَوِي الْخَبِيثُ وَالطَّيِّبُ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكَ كَثْرَةُ الْخَبِيثِ. Allah says, say to them, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that good and bad are not the same. They cannot be compared. They are incomparable. Good and bad. The good and the filthy are incomparable. Even if the abundance of bad impresses you, it may influence you. وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكَ كَثْرَةُ الْخَبِيثِ. Even if the abundance of filth, of bad, of evil, of negative things impresses you, it cannot be compared to what is good, even if only a few are latching onto the good. The 4th person is not that well known out of the Arab world, but he was known to be one of the wise amongst the Arabs before Islam. One of the wise. And he had an uncommon name. And I know some of the kitties are looking to get married in the future. May Allah give you good spouses. Some people come and they ask me for names. Dus ek gee miskien 'n paar name. They say, nee Sheikh, hy's 'n common naam man. Dis wel 'n uncommon naam hê. Now this name I know you won't give because it's too uncommon. That's it. Qus ibn Sa'ida, but he's famously just referred to as Ibn Sa'ida. So it will be, in English it will be Quss. Canada don't give that name. Qus ibn Sa'ida. He was known to be very wise and was known to be a Hanif. And he would stand up amongst his people. Nabi Sallallahu heard about him. He would stand up amongst his people and he would say, Ayyuhan nas, gather and listen to me and try to remember what I'm telling you. He said, Ijtami'u, wastami'u, wa'u. We'll come to that verb inshallah. Wa'u is a command. He said, Man asha mata. You can see, whosoever has lived has died. He tells his people. They remember what he said. And they pass it on from generation to generation. So he was known as a Hanif. Man asha mat. Wa man mata fat. And whosoever has died has passed on. Klaar by die dunya. Wa kullu ma huwa atin at. And everything that is coming is surely to come. Inna fi samai la khabra. In the sky there was some information that came. Some from the skies. Wa inna fil ardi la ibra. And really in the land there's some lessons to be learned. We speak these types of things. Wisdom-filled words. He's regarded as the first one to address his people reclining on a stick. Something unique, eh? Like a tonga that we use for Jumu'ahs, man. Yes. Reclining on his stick. It looked regal. It looked elegant. It looked authoritative. He would lecture his people and hold on to his stick. Now, أول من خطب متكئا على عصا. And is regarded as the first person to introduce a topic and then say, Amma ba'd. And then continue. Strange, amongst the Arabs they would record this. Amma ba'd means, now if I remove this, Amma ba'du. Yeah, something is mahdhuf here, hidden. As for after, yawth, in English we'll say yawth, or after this. So after the introduction, so he says, as for after the introduction, as for after my praise or salutation, here's the main topic to come. So you start, you draw the attention, you make some praises like we would do. We still first praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We maybe take shahada and we say salawat and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then we say amma ba'd. Meaning, as for after this, as for after praising Allah and salutation, here's the topic of the day. He's known as the first person to say amma ba'd. And there's some narratives about him that he would take advantage of certain marketplaces and certain annual meeting places and even the pilgrimage. Happen with them in the akhirah. Are they regarded as the sister? The two of them, Sa'id bin Zayd and Umar, skoon broers, ne? They are narrated to have gone to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then they went to ask the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam about Sa'id's father. So Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Yub'athu ummatan liwahdihi yawm al-qiyamah." He will be resurrected as a nation by himself on the day of Qiyamah. Now, what does this mean? What does it mean? It sounds profound, right? What does it mean? The only other person that we know of that's referred to as a nation by himself is Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. So Nabi Muhammad, where Allah says in the Quran, Inna Ibrahima kana ummatan. Ibrahim was a nation. Why? Because there was a time when Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam was the only believer on this dunya. And Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, because of his belief, it affected his manner, it affected his being, it affected his mind, it affected his heart. He embodied all the possible goodness that could be found in a nation. So he was as if a nation in himself. So Nabi Muhammad said that your father, O Sa'id, will be resurrected as a nation by himself. Okay. Were there any good traits amongst the Arabs before Islam? Good attributes, good features, good characteristics? I'm not speaking about these four men. I'm speaking about even those who were indulging in the idols. Were there some good attributes that we know of? That's why Nabi Muhammad didn't say, I have been sent to teach you good manners. He said, I have been sent to complete the noblest of manners. I mean, there were some things. One thing, even up until today, the Arabs are very sensitive about, and the Arabs take pride in being and having, is this attribute of hospitality and generosity. They do not want to be seen as miserly or stingy or niggardly. Okay? There's one individual, he also passed away before Islam. Two are coming to my mind now. One Sahabi's father, Mut'im. His name, Mut'im. Mut'im bin Adi. What is food in Arabic? Food? Ta'am. So you take ta, you take ayn, you take mim. You put it on the fourth scale. Sorry now for the Arabicness. And you give the fa'il is muf'il. So what do you get? Mut'im. Mut'im means to give food. That's his name. Muhammad Koski. It means a feeder. It means a feeder, that's his name. And he was known to be, he wouldn't have a meal alone. Like Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam also is regarded as someone who was very generous. He would, when a meal was presented to him by Sayyidah Hajar or Sayyidah Sarah, he would look outside for someone
and called them some to eat. Mut'im ibn Adi. Mut'im. But the other person, his name was who? He was Abu Bakr al-Anhu's father, Abu Quhafa, his cousin. So Abu Bakr al-Anhu's father's cousin. He was a unique man. He was so respected and loved that important meetings would be held in his house. I'm going to give you his name now, but he had a nickname, a unique nickname, a title, showing you how they revered and respected generosity and hospitality. Are you all with me, Hajjas? His name was Abdullah, again significantly, bin Jud'an. Uncommon. That was his name. But don't worry about his name. His title was, they used to refer to him as, I'll tell you why. Now, Raqib means a rider, literally someone who rides a camel or horse. But it means a traveler, someone who's on a camel, on a horse. Zad, this word you know, because you hear at Hajj time, when they speak about the ayat of Hajj, Allah says, وَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى. Provision. Allah says, seek provision, and the best of provisions is taqwa. His title was Zad al-Raqib. What does it mean? It means the provision of the traveler. You know why I got this name? Because if anyone heard that he was about to take a journey, and they also maybe had plans to go to that place, but they just needed people to move with, because you can't travel alone in the desert. So they would ask him if they could travel with him. Then he would have one condition to allow them to travel. His condition was this, that whoever travels with him must allow him to see to all their food. That's the condition. He doesn't want anyone to see to their own stuff. He sees to it. That's why he became known as Zad al-Raqib. If people say, nee, ik ga het mezelf iets soort zeggen, nee, is okay, dan saam mee kom. Yo! He said, no, ons kan deel. No. It's on me. We can share, kan 'n kitty begin? Nee, it's on me. No kitty, no share, nothing. He wants to see to it. Can you imagine? They were also known, okay, so hospitality. Many examples. But they were also known for their bravery. Now, they would not be subdued or subjected and give in, humiliated. No, they were men of the desert. They were not sissies. They knew how to defend themselves and stand up for what they believed was right. They stood up for their families, for their possessions, and they stood up for their tribes and their clansmen, no matter what. And the only downside of their bravery at times, it would sometimes push them beyond logic or logical understanding or reasoning. In that, there were times when battles would continue for long periods. So there's something I narrated to the class, I think last year. I don't know if you're in for it now. You know, there's a battle that only ended at the time of prophethood. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam received the first message. But it's a battle that is known to have extended and prolonged for 40 years. Between two tribes and their allies. So you have two tribes that have an issue with each other. So all who are aligned to this tribe and all who are aligned to that tribe, whenever their paths cross in the desert, dan baklei hulle saam mekaar. For 40 years, there was bloodshed. And over what? Over some business. But the unique thing is that a woman was instrumental in having it stopped. So I have to now elaborate a bit on that, isn't it? Yes. And she accepted Islam later. And her husband. But he took the credit. But the history books record as sy wat het gedoen het. So to save you from lots of names, and there's a famous poet that came from the one tribe, and he became, I think the batteries, Okay, so that's a sign. Maybe we must just take a breather. So there was a man by the name of Al-Mundir. He would be regarded as the king of a particular region, and he had these huge trading caravans moving through the desert. Trading caravans. So he went to this one clan, Banu Abs, Ain Basim, don't worry about the names. And he asked them if they were willing to offer protection for his caravans through the desert for some remuneration. Okay? They agreed. But a neighboring clan, who was also in the same route and same area, Banu Dibyan, they wanted part of the deal. So they went to Banu Abs and said, we've always worked together. Why don't you speak to that clansman that we can offer you support, and there's more support, and the more support he has, the better for his trading caravan, for his business. But Banu Abs said, no, we got the contract. You came to us. So the Banu Dibyan said to Banu Abs, okay, we race for it. You choose your best rider, horse rider. We choose our best rider. You choose your best stallion or mare, and we choose ours. And we set out a route in the desert, and the one who wins gets the contract. You understand? But what Banu Dibyan did, it's recorded. What Banu Dibyan did, they decided on their rider and everything as said, but then along the route they put some hidden archers. And then they said, if you see Banu Ab's rider ahead, then shoot arrows on the sides of the horse so it can be derailed a bit, detracted, so we can get lead. But if you see our rider ahead, then obviously you leave. So the race began, and when they came to a first point, when the Absi, the rider from Banu Abs, was ahead, the rider from Banu Dibyan noted something changed, some movement there in the hills or whatever, and then they detected the deception and the treachery. So then the fight started between them. So who caused the issue? Banu Dibyan's people. You with me? They suggested the race, but then they attached this treachery to it. So they started fighting, and then the allies were brought in, and it continued for years, for 40 years. So now it comes to the prophetic period. Just before Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gets wahi, one of the descendants of Banu Dibyan, they had already overlooked the reason for the fight. It just continued. People had been born into this fight. You with me? They are our arch enemies, and we're just going to fight. And who are the allies? As just for a low kray, as baklay sama. So now, one of the descendants of Banu Dibyan, he had amassed some wealth, some land, and some animals, but he was not married. And he because of his position of wealth, he was a bit arrogant. So he speaks one day to his cousin and says, I think it's time for me to get married, but I want to get married to a woman whose father might think to refuse me. Ek wil so 'n man verkeerd wys. Strange. So his cousin said, I know of someone like that. So he went, but strange, listen, he went to a person of Banu Abs. And this man had 3 daughters. His name was Aus. And he said, I come in peace, and I come to offer one of your daughters a grand life. So the father, Aus said, don't waste your time. So now he's moving. But the wife of Aus asked, who was that? He said, no, die man is a rich man. He said, well, when I marry one of our daughters, when I give her a grand life and the end. So his wife said, at least give him a hearing. Hear what he wants to say. So he speaks. So he said, okay, look, this is not before Islam. He calls his eldest daughter and says, this man came from there, whatever. And he comes in peace and it's about marriage. And there may be some good in it. He comes not as a fighter, he comes as representing himself. And he claims he's peaceful. Anyway, his daughter, the first daughter says, they didn't even see each other, but she says, I'm not that pretty, and I'm not so confident in what I can make as far as food is concerned, and he's not from our clan. So if he were to divorce me, I'll have no one to support me that side. She thought negatively. Father said, it's your choice. He called the second daughter, she says the same thing. He calls the third daughter. Now we have her name, and I want to give you her name. When he conveyed to her who this man was, she says, from Banu Dibyan. He says, yes. And she said, she asked the father, is he rich? The father said, yes. She said, okay, yes, I'll get married to you. What? The father didn't say, but your titties? They didn't say, no. They said. So she said, أنا الجميلة وجها أنا الصنيعة يدا أنا الكريمة أبا. She said, I am beautiful in my own right. She says, others can make things, but what I can do, I do to my best ability. And she said, I have a noble father like you. And she said, if anything were to happen between me and him, may he never get good after that for the rest of his life. She had another mind. So now they saw each other, and they what? They had like a small ceremony. And the case that he set up camp next to her previous residence. So his cousin is with him, and the cousin says, he goes into the tent. This is now for the Tro'an. He goes into the tent, and less than a minute he comes out again. So the cousin said, what happened? He said, no, this woman hit my hand. And she told me, I don't have respect for her father and her family. How can he just have his way with her right there by the father? She wants to be in her own space. So they left the next morning. Along the way, sets up camp again, and he goes in, and he cousin seen from ko et naam. So what happened? The guy, she said, you speak of being so wealthy. Where's your generosity? Where's your reception? Where's your people? And you want to have your way with me like a slave girl on the way, on the road. So the cousin said, this is an intelligent woman. So they come to this space, and he has a banquet, and he invites everyone. And the night after the banquet, everything is cleared. He comes down to the Tro'an, and he says to her, can you see now who came? Can you see what I've done? She says to him, I've heard of your generosity, but I've seen very little of it. So he goes on his knees the case, and he says, what do you want from me? So she said, do you really want to know? And he says, yes. She says, you are selfish. You want to satisfy yourself whilst your people are living in fear. Aren't you from this clan? And aren't you, according to what we know, oral tradition, aren't you the people who started this whole fight? I want you to make peace between the tribes. You go back and forth, no matter how long it takes. If you are successful, you will find what is yours to be waiting for you. So history books have it that him and his cousin, they went back and forth to the chiefs of Abs and the other clans, when those who had allegiances with them. And then they agreed to pay blood money, 3,000 camels, over a period of 3 years. I think her husband's name was Al-Harith. Okay? Or Haritha. But her name was Bahisa. It's an uncommon name. I don't know if we're going to give this name. I don't know what's the meaning. We can check. But it's an old Arab name. She's known in our history books as Bahisa bint Aus. So they say when her husband came in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he accepted Islam, took Shahada, and then the Rasul sallallahu asked him, "What's your name?" And he said his name, Harith bin Ibn so-and-so. And the said, "Oh, you were the generous person who put a stop to that long continuing battle between Banu Abs and Banu Dibya." But it's documented that the person behind every successful man But what are we saying here? We're speaking about bravery. They had this issue of bravery. And there's a famous poet, we can touch on it. You can search his name in English too. Antara. He was from Banu Abs. He got fame in one of those battles there. But that's enough of him. Bravery, they were known for the hospitality. And in some of them, they were known for their loyalty. If he gave you his word to do something, he held himself accountable for his word. Okay? Loyalty. And they respected people who were loyal. And therefore Rasulullah stood out in that time, because they all gave him the name of Al-Amin, most loyal, most trustworthy amongst us. And then they were known as well, I don't know if you will regard it as a good attribute, but they were known to respect clear, eloquent, beautiful speech. And that's why the poets were of the richest people. So think about this. They grew up in the desert. They were desert dwellers. They not only survived in the desert, but they thrived in the desert. Survived and thrived in the desert. They had a system of how they conducted themselves, you with me? And preserved their lineage. They were known, amongst them were people who preserved their genealogy, your ancestry. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was known to have been a master of genealogy. Ilmul ansab, the knowledge of lineage. And they, along with all this, knew how to defend themselves, knew how to wield a shield and wield a sword and throw a spear and shoot arrows and things. They could be silenced by beautiful words. So some unique feature. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obviously knowing this and putting this there in their hearts as a seed, revealed His word to draw them. Now, the ultimate miracle. طيب. So amongst all of this, we have now Abdul Muttalib is the chief of the Quraysh. The Zamzam pit became a legend spoken of. Why? Because when the descendants of Nabi Ismail alayhi salam, there were some battles about the region before Islam. Listen to me, few more minutes. Before Islam, there were some battles for the territory, and the tribe of Jurhum, which were the descendants of Nabi Ismail alayhi salam, they were pushed out of Makkah. So what they did, Hajjah, was this. They buried the well of Zamzam. They blocked it, and they buried deep into the ground. They buried of their shields and of their weapons, and they buried of their precious items, with the intention maybe of coming back at some time and regaining the space. But it was long forgotten. Abdul Muttalib had a dream one night. Now this is in our books. He narrates this to people. He had a dream, actually 3 nights in a row, of someone attracting him to that point, to a particular point in the Mataf area. And at that time, he only had 1 or 2 sons. So when he finally called his sons one day, and they went to start digging there, and then the water sprouted out, and they found this relics of the old tribe of Jurhum. He gained a more revered and honored status amongst his people. But at that time, because he only had 2 with him, some say 1 son at the time, some say 2. He struggled to block the whole area off, and to defend himself, and to claim. Allah made him tall. He was a tall man, Abdul Muttalib, tall and handsome. He struggled. So they recognized his position and the favor that he got from the Lord, because he was directed to the space. But he made a prayer and he made a vow. he made a prayer saying that, oh Allah, if you grant me 10 sons to support me in my position in my life here, I will sacrifice one of them for your sake. So time passed, and they say every year he got another son, and then they grew, and when they were more or less mature, okay, Abdullah was about 18, 19, 20 there, they say, he was reminded one day of that oath. So he called them 10, the sons, and told them that before this was the state of our people, and Allah united them through this dream that I got, and I got this position, and what you grew up in is because of that dream, and I made this oath and promise to the Creator. One of you have to be sacrificed. Taken. So they said, our Father, we are prepared to support you in your vow, because it was His word. But how are we going to do it? So He said, we're going to write your names on arrows, we're going to shake it up, and we're going to draw one arrow. So thrice it happened. And he was the youngest Abdullah. He pulled and it was Abdullah's name. So the brothers said, the brothers knew his connection to the youngest son. Do not fear, Papa. Shake it. Second time again, third time again. So now he was in a thing. Because not only that, our books of history say his wives started complaining now. Do needs honest. So in Martin Link's book, he mentions about them going to a wise elderly woman in Medina. In other books, they just say he was advised, because he was now between. There's a white Mercedes blocking someone. Okay, white Mercedes blocking someone. Long story short, he was advised to draw lots between Abdullah and 10 camels at a time. But the person advised him this. So you have 2 arrows. You shake them up. The one that represents Abdullah, the other represents camels. But it represents 10 camels at a time. Okay? If you draw Abdullah's name, then you shake it up again, but then you add 10 more camels to the lot. Meaning, then 20 camels instead of Abdullah. And if you draw Abdullah's name again, you add 10 more. Meaning, 30 camels instead of Abdullah. It continued in this way until there were 100 camels on the one side against Abdullah, and then the arrow for Abdullah was picked, was drawn, was taken. So they sacrificed 100 camels instead of Abdullah. And in the Arab world for a long time, 100 camels is regarded as blood money for taking someone's life. You with me? So that's one of the significant occurrences that happened before Abdullah got married. There is one more thing which we can end with. There's a woman, and we hear about this woman before, who proposed to Abdullah. And whenever he used to pass by her house, she would send something for him. She was infatuated with him. Okay? In that time, Abdul Muttalib had some consultation with his peers, and they spoke of a woman that's known as the flower of Medina, Zahratul Medina, and she was from Banu Zuhra. She was the daughter of Wahab. Wahab had passed on, so her uncle was busy seeing to her needs. Her name was Amina, and she was regarded as the most beautiful woman in Medina, and they had a link to Quraysh. They were one of the further clans of Quraysh, so there was a link. It wasn't that they were marrying out of the tribe now. So Abdul Muttalib took Abdullah to go and meet the family that side, and long story short, proposal, long story short, there was a marriage, there was a ceremony, and then days later, that's another significant thing, days later, he now comes back because there's work to be done, and he's settling in Makkah. So he brings Amina from her home, Amina to bint Wahab, he brings her from her home and they settle in Makkah, and then, we have to stop now, but he passes by this lady, and her name is Qatila, and she was the sister of Waraqah bin Nawfal, who we mentioned before. So Qatila bintu Nawfal. Who was Waraqah? Waraqah was Khadija's cousin. Now, the one of the Hunafa. So she sees him, And he notices, he's not alone there in the road, and he notices something's different. She doesn't give him a second glance. This Qatila. So he thought, okay, it's because of, she might have heard I got married. But it happens, now we have in our record, it happens that he passed by a second time and he asked her a question. He says, just tell me why the aversion now or the difference in your state regarding me. She said, before you went with your father to Medina, I saw something on your face like a light. A light, there was something illuminated on your face. And listening to my brother speaking about the messengers and speaking about the divine and speaking about a prophet to come, I was hopeful that that light represented something good, and I wanted part of it for myself, but I don't see it now. Meaning what? It had been passed on and passed on to the womb of Amina. Understand? Now, Qatila. Allah bless and grant us understanding and barakah in our time and protection over the next week. We will see next week, inshallah. Sallallahu wa sallam wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله عليه صلاة الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله عليه صلاة الله بها يثبت الإيمان بها يحصل الأمان كرر أيها الإنسان لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله عليه صلاة الله قد أتانا في الأخبار عن المصطفى المختار أن أفضل الأذكار لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله عليه صلاة الله هي شفاء الصدور هي